Okay, this is Sycamoria. We are going to do a quick tutorial on scanning in EVE Online. So real quick, you should have your Galaxy Finder map open. This is from last night. And then you should also have open your wormhole guides. I use Ashy in Space and EVE Online. Those links can be found in our Discord channels. All right, so we're going to get to scanning. I'm going to be taking out my Helios scanning chip. I'm going to show you a quick fitting. This is a higher level ship, but basically we have our probe launcher, our covert ops cloaking device, and then I have some range finding and scan acquisition modules, as well as a micro warp drive. This is strictly a scanning or a mapping chip. Cannot do really anything else, including cannot hack data or relic sites. I have a different chip for that. So let's get going. I'm going to undock my ship. And what I expect to find in whole is some new signatures. Some may be the same from last night, but I would expect to see some new ones this morning. I'm going to just stop my ship here. My ship is tethered, so I cannot be attacked here. So it's the same as if I was docked. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure I've got my directional scanner out, and I'm going to start scanning to see if there's anything in the system. This is important. Just scan, 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 and then I'm going to go ahead and release my probes. I do that by clicking F1. So my probes are now released. I can see them on my scanner, and now I'm going to go warp off and be somewhere safe, and I will be essentially cloaked the whole time. I'm going to just go to this abyssal safe 2. Nobody else is in system with me currently as far as anybody from the corp, so I know nobody's sitting on that. I'm going to quickly cloak up, continuing to scan to see if anybody's here. And now I've left my probes behind, so they are no longer on my scan. I am scanning at 14.3 AU in a 360 degree pattern. This is looking all around me for ships that might be coming in. I have my overview set on the combat tab, which will help me see if anybody warps in on top of me for whatever reason. I don't expect that to happen today. All right, so here are the signatures that are in our system. To get these over into the mapper program, I'm going to select one, Control A to select all, and Control C to copy to put onto the clipboard. I'm going to Alt Tab out to our mapper, and I can see here that I am in this Angel's Perch C3 system. This is our home system. I'm going to left click and Control V to paste. You can see now that we have some unknown signatures. Some remain the same. And if you'll notice, there are some checkmark signatures. We can see a trash can over here. So the first thing you want to do is clean this up and put those in the trash. At this point, we now have all of the signatures accounted for, and we're going to start scanning. So back to EVE I go. Remember my probes, I launched those as soon as I left the dock. And we're going to start scanning. So F9 is what I use for my map. I'm going to zoom in. Here's all of my probes. And I'm just going to start picking signatures and start scanning. So to put this in the center of the map, you can click it and it will move to the center of the map. And then I'm going to zoom out, and I can see that I need to make my probe size a little bit larger. Typically start with 8 AU. And I'm also double clicking here on the screen to flip the map around. This is important just to keep things lined up. And now I'm going to start scanning. And again, remember to keep your D-scan going as well, just to be checking to make sure nobody lands on top of you. I am going to just show you how to scan these down. Some of these signatures are already marked in the system, but I think it's important that you understand just kind of how to scan. I'm going to finish one completely, and then I'll show you how to quickly scan something if it's in system already in our mapper, and we've saved those locations. Okay, we've got a wormhole. That's good. Again, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to move this right over the center, double clicking to reposition. Sometimes I have to zoom out to go grab my probes. Now I am pulled in as far as I can, and this time I'm going to lower my probe size a little bit further. Now, depending on your scanning capability, you can sometimes skip a level. I'm going to go right down to 1. This should either scan it out or at least get it very close. Okay, and there we go. That is scanned out. Perfect. All right, so I thought maybe this was going to go here. I hadn't really looked at it, but this is a relic site, HLU. I can come in and just sort this by ID, for example, and HLU no longer exists. So we'll clean up the folders kind of as we go here, and we'll get rid of that, get that cleaned up. I'm going to show you real quickly how to scan something down that is already in the folder. So EAJ, which is a cosmic signature, if I double click that, it's going to take me to it. It's actually put this right underneath of this pen. This has already been marked in the mapper before. So what I can do there is I can put my probes right underneath of that pen because we know where it is. Somebody's already marked it for us. But I don't like red signatures. Again, I can click that to center that up. And this time I'm going to drop my probe size all the way down to 0.25. I want it as tiny as it'll go. And if you look, if we scan out, ooh, it's tiny. I'm going to go ahead and scan that down. Again, keeping an eye on my D-scan. Make sure nothing's coming in on top of me. And that's a data site, and that's scanned right to that pen. So that's how, if something's already marked, you can quickly scan that down by just putting your probes underneath of it, going down to the lowest AU setting, and scanning it down. All right, we're going to keep going here. Note to self, I could probably speed up the video at this point. For this one, it knows that it's somewhere in between these 2 points. So I'm going to put it in the center of that, expand my probe size out to cover it. It's at 2 AU. It means I hit it earlier. I got it scanned down to some degree. And if you're having trouble getting the signature to paint up at all, you can just expand your probe size a little bit larger. Now we can see that that's kind of coming in a little closer now. It has a good idea of where it is. If I take my probes down one size, it's a little too small, so I'm going to leave it out there. If I had to guess, this is probably going to be a data site. I can tell that just because it's being cantankerous on how it's scanning down. Data sites tend to be higher level when you're in wormhole space, and so sometimes it takes a few more times to get it scanned down. Lowering my probe size again. If you notice when I hover over that, it tells us what the signature is that we're scanning, but also the scanning difficulty. Currently it's unknown. You'll probably see that come in as a level 3 as we get further down here. It's important, again, just to take your time and and get your probes right on top of it as close as you can get it, especially when it's having a hard time scanning down. Oh, it's a wormhole. Nice. Let me see. Scanning level 2. Surprised. See how the probes, they're really concentrated in this area, kind of like the football shape. So what we're trying to do is get the probes as concentrated as possible there. Now that I have it a little bit, I'm going to really take my probe size down. Sometimes it'll come back and say no signature, and that's because I took my probe size down too far, so we'll see what it does here. We're at 67.5% right now. Here we go. I don't need 16, I just need it down to 8. 8 AU right here. There's my scanner probes are back in view. Either that or there's somebody else's, but I'm right here and my scanner probes are over me, so those are my scanner probes. This is actually our static hole, and it's going to come right there. All right, no more red signatures. I can immediately pull my probes in. Now I'm going to spend just a few minutes clearing up the folders a little bit. So I'm going to put these IDs in order. I'm going to come out here to locations. My static chain still is JVU. I know that exists. It's right there. JVU. Oops. My Bravo is TFD. Let's see if TFD is out here. TFD is gone. So what I'm going to do with Bravo chain is I'm actually going to remove that location. It no longer exists. That was a low sec hole. Yes, I do. You can either do this before or after you get your maps, your signatures pasted into the mapper. I sometimes forget to do it, so I like to try to do it while it's at top of mind. So let's see. Location Charlie is JQF. There's no longer JQF in the list, so I'm going to delete that one as well. And then let me see what we got in the home SIGs. If you remember from reading the guideline that I put together, each wormhole within our home system will always have its own chain. So our low sec static is always in the static chain, and then we have alpha, Bravo, Charlie, etc. We also have home SIGs, which are other signatures that are out here that are either safe spots or something that we've saved from the probe scanner. So when I look at that in our home SIGs, we've got a data site, which is what the D indicates, and an R indicates a relic site. So EAJ and HLU. So EAJ still exists, and HLU is gone. So I will go ahead and delete HLU. And again, just hover over it, and remove location. And I think that's pretty much everything. So now that I've got these scanned down, I'm going to Control A to select them all, Control C to copy, and I'm going back out to my mapper now, and I'm going to paste those in. And notice that we've got a couple of unknown. What's going to happen here is I'm going to Control V, and now those are updated to be wormholes, and we've got the one data site. Okay, and that data site is already saved. So we don't need to do anything there. If you recall, EAJ is our data site, and that is already out there. That, just so you're aware, is a combat site. It requires special ships, sometimes a tag team effort in order to do those sites, so be very careful about just warping to any data site. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the wormholes, and I'm going to sort this by the group. I like to pull my wormholes up to the top, and I already know that JVU is our static site, but I'm going to warp to within 50 of that. I want to check it. I know nobody has checked it since last night, so I want to check that and see if it's end of life. So we're going to warp to about 50 or 70 off of that. You can see it right there. Okay. And many times I can tell just by looking at it whether or not it's end of life. But the best way to see that is to come in and right click your wormhole and show info. It says here that it leads to low security. It's beginning to decay, but it does not mention that it's ending its natural lifetime. So this hole is okay to jump. Do not recommend jumping an EOL hole, end of life hole, going out of our system for fear of being stranded out in space somewhere. If that happens, we'll get you back, no worries. We'll just have to figure out where you are and how to get you back. But we can help with that. You're always free to jump an EOL hole coming back into home, but again, don't recommend it going out. So that one's good, and we've already got that one saved. That is our static hole, and it's right there. All right, so let's go check out our next wormhole, YDT. Again, I'm going to warp to 50. Now this is the way I do it. Some people warp to it and jump it right away. I don't. I like to get my mapper all updated before I start jumping into different holes. So I'm going to warp to that. It's right here. I'm going to take a look at the info. This tells me this leads into dangerous unknown parts of space. If you look at the document, there's a table within that document, and it mentions some keywords of dangerous space, unknown, unknown space, low security, high security, things like this. So this is dangerous. No mention of it being near its end of life. So, so I already have a good idea of what type of hole this is, but now I'm going to look at, and this is what's going to help you understand what kind of hole this is. And so as I turn this around, you're going to notice we have a bright white cloud, a little bit of white, it's kind of whitish pink in there, and also black. Right, you guys see that? Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to use my guide to wormhole identification. So I prefer ASCII. Because this is dangerous space, I know it's either going to be a C4 or a C5. So C1, 2, and 3 is unknown. C4 and C5 is dangerous. C6 is deadly. And then we have other types of wormholes. We have specialized wormholes. So we know it's a C4 or a C5. It's a C4. I can tell that right off the bat. We have white clouds with a black center. This one is white clouds with a red center, right? So we know that's a C4. So that's how you tell. So I'm going to come back here. And this is critical when you're saving wormholes. You need to be at the wormhole and click the center of it to save the location. And this is going to be a .C4. It's a C4 classification. The dot puts it up in the top of the list. And we're going to follow that with YDT, which is the identifier YDT. Now this is not the static chain, but I'm going to save this now into a new chain, and you can pick whatever chain you want. Just recommend that you start with Alpha or Bravo if there's not anything in that. And we're going to expire that in 2 days. Okay. Now what I want to do, and I'm going to make a note to myself that that is a C4. What I can do right now is I can actually go out to the mapper, and here where it says YDT, I'm going to click on the pencil icon and note that as a C4 wormhole and update that. That way anybody glancing at the mapper can tell right away what type of wormhole that is without anybody having to jump through it. You can also see the mapper is updated now with the C4. This one still has a question mark because we don't know what it is yet. Back to Eve. And now we're going to do the same thing, rinse and repeat. Warp to 50, 70, whatever makes sense. Don't warp to 0 because that puts you right on it and it will decloak you. Remember, we should always be scanning. I'm not the best in the world at remembering to do that. I remember and then I go, oh my God, I'm surprised I'm not blowing up yet. Okay, we're at the wormhole. I can see it here in my overview. Rather than like look around and try to find it, which sometimes is kind of a pain, you can just click the wormhole, show your info. This is unknown, so I know this is going to be either a C1, 2, or 3. Again, no end of life, so that's great. Now I'm going to look at, so right click the wormhole and look at. Okay, we have white with a solid black cloud. That's important in this one because we've got a couple that look similar. So white with a solid black center. I'm going to go back out here to the wormhole identification chart. See, it looks a lot like a C4, but because it was unknown, we know that it's either a C1, 2, or 3. The C1 has black wispy clouds. The C2 has a solid black cloud, and the C3 has a red cloud. So I know that this is a C2. What will happen is you'll get very good at identifying these, but I always keep these sites up and I always reference them, especially when I just kind of start scanning first time of the day so that I don't mess it up. All right, so back out here, I'm gonna click in the center, save my location. This is a .c2 and this is XBB. So XBB, I'm going to submit that in Bravo chain now. Remember, each wormhole gets its own chain. So this is static, this is alpha, this is Bravo. Okay, so I'm submitting that. And for myself, I keep pen and paper next to me so that I can just kind of make notes. Like I said, most of the time I come back out here to Mapper and I update these at the same time. So XBB is a C2. I do that because it's pretty quick just to come in here and note which class. Okay, update. So now we've got all of our signatures completed. We're looking at them up here. And now we're ready to go jump one of these holes. The key difference between scanning in your home system versus down chain is in your home system, your relic and your data site or your combat sites go in the home folder. Once you start going down a chain, then those those signatures stay in that chain folder. So one other thing that I can do here is when I start jumping these holes, I'll be able to come in and say that this is, I think we said this was our Bravo chain and this is our Alpha chain. So back to Eve. Now, I'm going to just right click over here and just tell it to look at my ship. It's because I was actually focused on the wormhole. I'm quite a ways off of this wormhole, but I'm not so close that I can just warp to it. I can only approach it and then jump it. I can't actually warp. Because of that, I'm going to choose a different wormhole to jump. And so this time, I see the wormhole here. I'm actually going to warp to it from my locations folder. And remember that YDT is in my alpha chain. And I'm going to warp to 0. The reason why this is important is if I just choose the warp to here, it's going to place me off of the hole. It puts me at the warp in point, not on the face of the hole. And when I'm getting ready to jump a hole, I want to be as close to it as humanly possible so that I can jump it immediately. When I get close, it is going to decloak me. And if I don't jump close enough, then the chances of me being decloaked and shot are pretty great. So I'm going to warp to 0. Still checking my D scan. Oh, hold on. It will not let me stop. Somebody's got probes in here. I should have checked that before I warped off. That is my bad. Those are not my probes because mine are not launched. I'm going to go ahead and jump this hole even though I really probably shouldn't. But I'm decloaked at this point, so I'm jumping out. And hopefully they did not catch me on scan. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, this is quick. I want to look at this hole and I'm going to mark it. Right click in the center. I'm going to save this location as home. And YDT is in the alpha chain. And I'm going to submit that. I'm going to look, got lots of signatures. I'm going to warp off to, I'm going to warp to the sun here, sorry. And I'm going to warp to 100. When I warp, I'm going to drop my probes, F1 and F2 immediately to cloak up. Still checking D-scan. There's lots of stuff in here. Those are my probes. Okay, and when I land, I'm going to double click into space because I need to keep moving. A moving target is much harder to hit than a target that's sitting still, especially when you warp in on something like the moon or the sun. You have the potential that somebody could warp in on top of you. So you just pick a spot in space that is empty and double click it and start moving off into that. You can see right now I'm moving 611 miles per second. Okay, so we're here. I'm going to quickly Control A, Control C. I'm going to copy those over into my mapper. It's going to ask me where I jumped out of, and I'm going to tell it I jumped out of YDT because that way it knows where I'm at in the mapper. And I click that and I save it. And then here I am. It shows me in YDT. There are 2 statics in here. That's what these little dots down here indicate. So this hole is probably pretty active. It's got 2 statics in it. I'm also going to left click in here and Control V and paste all those signatures, right? So we have a lot. There's a ton to scan. I'm not going to scan them all on this video, but what I am going to show you is how to quickly scan your home spot, right? So there's our home. I know that because that's the one that I marked coming out. That's going to tell me which of these signatures over here, and there was a lot. Which of these signatures over here is my wormhole? So my home wormhole specifically. So I'm going to get right on top of that. If you guys remember this, get right on top, pull your probes down, zoom in as far as you possibly can, making sure your probes are underneath of that. Space is big. And I'm going to lower my probe size down to the lowest they'll go, and I'm going to scan that hole down. And what you're going to see is one of these is going to pop up and be my wormhole. And there it is. So our wormhole is VJW. You can see it right there at the top. That is my home. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to find VJW. Just happens to be the top one. That doesn't happen every time. And I'm going to set that as my return system. That is how we get back up the chain. So this way is going down the chain. This way is going up the chain. And so this wormhole is going to be saved in the same chain that this was saved in. So I'm going to save that, return to home, and update it. And it also says down here then, it's a C3, and it goes back to this wormhole space, or jspace, which is our home space. All right, so once you do that, you're back into Eve then, and you're just simply scanning down some sites. I'm going to see if I can't. I'll do a couple of them on this video, just mainly because I want you to see how to, again, just save a relic site. It's the same as you did before, or a data site or a combat site. It's just the difference is that now it's in the chain folder. And so my probe size is 8 AU. If I zoom in, it'll be right on top of the signature. Remember, you can click the X to make sure it's centered. You can also double click it over here. Let's see what happens. Still scanning to watch for anybody landing on top of me, or just anybody coming into hole. Scan down a little bit. I know that I'm on UTW. I'm going to lower my probe size. I'm going to zoom in, and again, always trying to get as close and zoomed in as possible. This is my D scan, looking for ships or anything else might be out there. Down to 19% on the scan. See that right there. I actually like scanning. Some people find it boring. I find it very cathartic and relaxing to just scan. Especially if I'm not being hunted down, or I've managed to not decloak myself or something like that to cause it slightly more stressful situation. Okay, UTW is going to be a wormhole as well. So we just finished scanning that down. Okay. And then I'm going to look for like a concentration. Looks like there's some different sites right in here. Yeah. I'm going to put my probe scanners there and just see if I can't get one of them to kind of come up. There's some technical pieces around how wormholes scan. They're always within so many meters of a planet or some other type of um, structure. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. They won't ever be too far off. Just scan this down real quick here. Notice I'm just kind of in the center of everything, but I'm trying to pick up a couple of signatures here. I'm gonna take that one. Okay, great. That's a data site. This will allow me to show you how to quickly save the data site. Data site saving or relics or combat sites is different than wormholes. You have to go to the wormhole. Do not save it any other way. You'll get yourself or your teammates killed, which is never a good thing. It can be costly. And Eve, there are consequences for dying. It's lost ship, you know, might take you a while to get back into hole because you're, you know, 60 jumps away, whatever the case might be. So please keep that in mind. Your clanmates or courtmates are counting on you to do it right, and really it's to help you out too. Scanning is absolutely critical to Wormhole Corporation. It's how we know who our neighbors are from day to day. That changes every day. It can even change every few hours. It also helps us, you know, to maneuver and get in and around and get out of space, get into a high sec or a low sec when needed. Now this is going to be the last thing that I do, so I'm going to go ahead and pull my probes so I don't forget. But to save this site, again, because this is not a wormhole, I'm going to right click on that line and do save location. It knows that I'm in alpha chain because I've saved a couple of things in alpha at this point. So I'm going to come in here, and because this is a data site, I'm just going to put a D in front of it, and then again save it in alpha. There we go. Now that is saved. It's on the map. The reason why this is important, although every wormholer should have basic scanning skills and should be able to scan their way out of a wormhole, if you're coming in to just do the sites, you can right click and go into locations, and let's say you're in alpha chain. If you're using the mapper, you already know what's there because we've done a good job at telling the mapper what's there. So if I'm just in here and I only have limited time, or I really don't want to scan, I just want to go run sites, I can come in here and I can see that this is a data site. And I can warp to this. I can warp to 0. I can warp to whatever, 30 kilometers. It will take me right to that site. I don't have to scan this down. So all these red X's can remain red X's in my probe scanning window. And if somebody from my corp has scanned these down and put them in the mapper, then I'm really good to go. I'm going to go ahead and do one last copy because I did get that data site saved. I'm going to update the mapper. Currently we only have one saved site. Just left click and paste. And now you're going to see that we have our data site. We've also got another wormhole that's partially, or no, that's the one I scanned down, so we know that one's there too. I'm not going to jump it for right now. In fact, I need to, I'm going to end the video, and I'm going to show you how to get back home before I do that. So I've pulled my probes. I'm going to do descan a little bit more. I'm going to use my locations to go home, alpha chain, exclamation point home, warp to 0, Watching. This is when you're warping to a wormhole and coming out of wormhole, this is your most critical place where you could possibly be picked up. If you see anybody that has combat scanners, combat probes out, that's a good idea that you need to get out of the area unless you're actually there looking for a fight. As a mapping ship, I'm never looking for a fight. Okay, now I am home. I'm going to click into space, choose my locations. I'm going to go right to Tim Hortons and I'm going to dock. By doing dock, it's going to get me safe right away. I'm going to cloak up as soon as I'm leaving. Nothing was on D-scan, including those probes that were here earlier. They were not here. It's okay if they saw me on D-scan. That way they know it's an active hole. And now I'm going to be docked up, and life is good. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please feel free to holler at me anytime. I'm happy to help. Thank you.